Welcome back to our regular monthly podcast. We hope over the last few weeks you've enjoyed our weekly mini-pods on the thinking and making of the field. The field audio is still available for free everywhere you get your podcasts. And that brings me to also tell you about our Patreon. So if you are enjoying our content, then please do consider supporting us. The link is in the description. Now for this month's podcast, we return to our conversation with Tobias Weatherburn. Specifically, we discuss the world of voiceovers, and that includes giving our pets voices too. There's a lot of laughter and some special skills are explored. We hope you enjoy.
Good girl, good settle.
Good girl.
So that's the intro to the the YouTube one, isn't it? On your beddy, good girl.
Well done.
And this is and these are not voices from any audio. This is us just making stupid voices to speak to our dogs.
I mean,
When you're a dog parent, you have to.
Yeah, how did you become... Well, I realised I had a talent once I started talking to my dog. I could do all stupid voices. I could only do children's characters.
But I think we spoke about this the first time I came here and met Bobby. 'Cause
Yeah.
I remember you doing that voice to talk to Bobby.
this is Bobby's voice.
Yeah. And then I had a very specific thing, like similar thing with our dog. Was like, this is how he talks. Like, this is Benji. I'm really devastated. Like, dogs just, for some reason, we give our animals voices, and it's great.
And it's bizarre. And like before we had Bobby, as part of the campaign to get a dog, I kind of created, again, you know, it's all about kind of imagination and sparking that imagination, isn't it? And the story and the narrative. So I had created Bobby before we even had her. And she was kind of like a private investigator. She had a kind of full character, but she was kind of like this sort of, had this kind of dirty American accent and was kind of quite rude. Yeah, there we go. See, she's green. And she'd be like, oh, I can't, I was going to swear then. For shrimp's sake, for holy shrimp, what the hell do you think you're doing? Julian, give me some food. My God, I've got to go out. Stop
Like
crying.
a Stell from Friends.
Yeah, you know, a little bit like that. Yeah, I think a heavy smoker probably as well. But then when we had her, the voice just didn't, and to be honest with you, I couldn't maintain it.
didn't have the, what was it, throat
coat.
I didn't have the throat coat. If I'd had the throat coat, that would have been
still
a
be
voice.
now doing it.
It makes a massive difference there. Like, long form, having to do any voice like that. Like, again, with Space Marine, like, having to maintain that voice for 3 hours is a lot. And at this level, it's fine. But shouting in this voice. And there was another one I did for a game called Glam Pursuit, which is this, like, lifestyle sim. And I played a guy called Bo, who was, like, a bartender, who had that voice. And it, like, retaining that for really long and having to be like, yeah, get over yourself. It's like, I didn't realise how much that was hurting until we finished.
And talking about voice skills, what other voice skills do you have? Because you, beyond, I guess, different accents, you can also do sort of kind of interesting sound effects and stuff.
Yeah.
Can't you?
This sounds like it's so set up.
That's
This is
such a funny
big
segue.
Such a set up.
So, your weird things you do. Yeah,
What
I
are
mean,
the weirdest voiceover-esque things?
I think it was probably one of the ways that made me sort of circle back around to wanting to do voice. Like, when I was younger, I was obsessed with impressions and silly voices. So I think a lot of the stuff I watched growing up, my parents were really good and just sort of gave me weird things to watch, which sort of established, like, I love absurdist stuff. So they would see things on, like, BBC Three or Channel 4 and be like, you need to watch Green Wing. You need to watch Reeves and Mortimer. You need to watch Mighty Boosh. And I was like, oh, I love weird stuff. This is great. Hello. And yeah, so it just made me sort of go like, I love those voices. Like, I want to do voices like Vic Reeves. And just, it established that. So then I think from a young age, I started trying to do impressions. And I think one of the very first ones I learned to do was like, probably Stewie from Family Guy and doing things like that. And then going on to do like the X Factor announcer, like, please welcome Rachel Adedeji. So from a young age, I was like, oh, I like this. I can play with this. And I think part of that, like I said previously, comes from like lack of a solid accent as such. So I was able to, like, my voice was malleable. And then, yeah, it reached the point where it went beyond impressions and started realizing I could imitate certain things that annoy people.
This is the good stuff. This is the good stuff.
So, this will probably peak a lot if I do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm just going to put the blanket over the baby, as in like my dog, not like a baby.
Because I will do a baby voice as well.
Yeah, I'll reduce the input slightly. Right.
One noise is a dog bark. So this is me and not Bobby.
So good.
Which is, I don't know how I learned I could do that. It's weird. And then the other one, which I used to upset people, is a baby cry. Which is... Which, if I ever really want to upset someone, is very useful.
They're so good. Have you ever used either of those two things now in any projects that you've done, any voiceover projects you've done?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm not crying. I'm fine. Hello. So I was actually hired by... so Ella, who directed and wrote Camlan, also works and I think runs Six to Start, who creates the Zombie Run and Marvel Move shows. And they did a New Year's special, which was an Ant-Man special. And I won't give spoilers for people that listen to it, but I voiced a baby that turned out to be a villain. So there is basically this 20-minute running episode of Ant-Man just being like, hey, I'm going to help you, it's fine. And he's being like, oh. And so I got paid to do that, which I find really funny.
And genuinely, I couldn't think of anything better to do that. Is that on your spotlight?
It is, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, baby cries, dog barks.
Fantastic.
But it's trying to find it and do it in different ways, because I think a lot of the times, because I play games a lot, if I play games with friends, there's a lot of stuff I do with Danny Muir, who's another creative. When we play games, we will just do voices. So we discovered, for instance, if anyone knows the character Brian Butterfield, who was a Peter Serafinowicz creation, who would just talk like this. I'm here today to talk to you about Butterfield's diet plan. So we would just talk like that while playing games. Like, I think there's an enemy over there. I'm going to go and look for them now. You stay here. And we would just do that and sort of like, can we do this in any way? So then we did a bit of streaming together and sort of went, we can do funny voices doing this.
Yes, that was my other question. With the lovely Danny Muir, you have started streaming. So tell us a little bit about that. Little foray into the world of streaming games and playing games.
So I have done minimal streaming so far. Danny has done it for a lot longer, but we did one together where we played a game. I think it was called You Are Here, which is a brilliant series of games. I think it's called like You Are Here Again or You Are Here Too, where you are separated in this world, and it's basically an escape room, and you go through different puzzles, talking over walkie-talkies to try and solve it. So we did that on stream, and Danny has streamed for a long time, doing lots of different like creative ASMR character things, as well as different games on Twitch like Siege and things like that. I enjoyed it, but at the same time found it incredibly stressful, because I think having played games for so long, you just sort of settle into it and you're just doing it. Whereas when you're streaming, especially if you're on camera, it becomes this strange thing of being like, okay, well, I need to address that as well. You're not just playing the game and talking. You're having to like, okay, well, I'm playing the game and I'm talking to the person I'm playing the game with, and then, okay, there's a chat there that I need to be keeping an eye on, and if somebody's talking to me in the chat, you're then responding to them looking at the camera. Like, it's a completely different setup to doing anything else, and it's performative but not performative if you're yourself or if you're portraying a sort of character who's a streamer or whatever. And it's a very strange thing to do, and I think I will definitely do more of it, but it is a very strange world to get used to, especially with the tech as well. Like learning the tech of doing your own sound recording and stuff like that, and then going, okay, well, if I'm doing this, I need to get a capture card, and I need to possibly have a Steam Deck and Stream Deck, not Steam Deck. That is a console. You need to have all these different things and learn how to use these interfaces and streaming software onto Twitch and different things like that. I don't think I realised until going into it how much is actually involved in doing it. And it gave me a whole new level of respect for people that are streamers and have to deal with all those different facets, be it tech or being, you know, camera, game, chat, all the different things.
And it's, you know, it's a massive thing, isn't it? And we watch a lot often of YouTubers playing games, and it's kind of like, it is quite fascinating. And I just wonder...
But don't play.
yeah, we don't play video games, really. I mean, there might be the odd game that I buy on Steam and then play that for a bit. And then we'll be quite intense playing that. And then we'll leave it for ages and not kind of play anything for a really long time. So, yeah, I just wonder what that is in terms of the fascination with watching people play.
I think the streaming one, when I guess there's kind of a variety of them, but generally the bigger the streamer, they're generally doing it daily. You know, it's a daily thing, and it's just an extension of a friend. I think.
Yeah.
You know, it's this regularity. It's routine, and I guess we were talking about it before with regard to, I guess, the comfort of an existing author or audiobook being recorded by a certain person, or a character that or a book, you've created your version of it, and then, you know, it comes and it knocks off your comfort. And I think it's a place where, unlike for me personally, and this could be me projecting, but unlike the issue with Netflix and Prime or Disney, where you've got to decide, you know, on something to watch, you just stick that on. And I always describe it as a bit like watching the cricket, because when I was younger, I'd put the cricket on and then I'd go and do other stuff. I wouldn't actually necessarily watch all of the cricket, and it'd be like a 5-day test, and I'd be like I'd be training and climbing and stuff like that, and I bet it would be this comfort of this noise. It's like radio, I guess, in some respects, right? And I think the streamer's a bit similar to that, because you know they're on there for 4 hours or something. You haven't had to choose. You've got something on. And yeah, by all means, you will get invested in certain bits of it every now and again, but I don't necessarily think it might be on, but I don't know if you're watching it like you'd watch a film, potentially. Maybe you would if it's a new thing or whatever, but if they're playing the same thing day in, day out, maybe you don't. I don't know. It just feels like it's that kind of second screen up there while you're doing other things.
I think as well, like, there's the difference between, like you're saying, you're not necessarily gamers. Sometimes it's that thing of going like, oh, well, I'm interested in this, but I'm never going to play it. And it could be a narrative-driven thing, and you're watching it to see the narrative unfold. Like, I play a lot more games than my partner. My partner used to play predominantly like sim games, so we play The Sims, but they've gotten really into the Baldur's Gate game because they're a massive like D&D fan, and they DM a lot. But they don't really play games, so a lot of the times they'll watch streamers to see the streamer play this game and enjoy it, and enjoy the streamer for one, as a person, like a friend or watching whatever, but then to enjoy that game without playing it. And I think I've had that because I played like constantly. I probably play at least an hour of a game a day if I'm going to be at home. But there will still be ones that I'm like, oh, do you know what? That's not one that I would play necessarily, because it's not the sort of genre I'm into or whatever, but I would happily watch somebody else play it and consume it that way. And I think it's interesting because it depends on the streamer as well, I think, because there are streamers who are far more, you know, I'm just going to play this game and I want you to concentrate on the game that's being played rather than me. Whereas, I don't know if this is the right term, but more personality-driven streamers, for instance, they want you want an audience to watch you, to have fun with what you're doing with the game, and it not be so much about the game, but more you having it. A really big one at the moment is Chained Together, which, for anyone that doesn't know, you play like, I think you're in the bowels of hell or something, and you're trying to escape, and you're chained to another person, and if you fall off, they go with you. And that is 100%
perfect for trolls.
Oh, yeah. It's some of the clips is just like, you're just driving this person insane. But that's very much like, you can watch that, and it's got nothing really to do with the game. The mechanics are funny to watch, but you're watching it for the people playing that game. And I think, you know, there's a lot of games like that.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think going back to Space Marine 2, I've watched Space Marine 2, the main walkthrough of the main game now, twice, from two different streamers, and it's 7 hours play time. I've watched both of them for 7 hours, give or take, and that's a really interesting one, because they're very rare now, like those type of games where there is an actual game, as opposed to it being just open world and you do what you want.
Yeah, it's 130 hours.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that feels very different. And Space Marine 2 is very different because it's so cinematic and, like you said before, the IP is huge. I'd probably argue the biggest IP out there. And it's interesting being shown what the IP could look like, actually look like. And so it's fantastic to kind of see all of these kind of different worlds and environments over the course of a game, because the cinematics in between, I think the cinematics in between are like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And they're gorgeous as well.
Yeah, it's stunning. And then the interesting bit about that, which is kind of, I'd be interested to know what the player feels, but the interesting about that is that they've got then the operations around the side of the main game, which I'm imagining one of your characters is your character.
Yeah,
in
so you
that
play
one?
as you've got an option of 6 different classes to play. So you've got like Assault, Bulwark, Vanguard, and it all runs in tandem. So these missions are happening off screen as the main campaign is happening, and they sort of, you hear about them over Vox chat, just sort of like, yes, we're going to defeat this Xenos now, we're going to defeat the Hive Tyrant, we're going to go and blow this up. Like, so it happens in tandem, and I think I've never seen another game do it, because it feels like almost an entirely separate campaign.
Yeah.
And it's a similar length as well. It's probably about 6 hours with the levels that they're at the moment, and it's great.
There's a bit on the main bit where, in effect, they're doing a Kobayashi Maru. So for Star Trek, non-Star Trek viewers, it's an unwinnable point in the game, where there's the Tyranids, who are like literally like a slightly off-white, but effectively aliens from the Alien franchise, are fighting the Space Marines, the main character Titus. And there's an overwhelming wave of them. And then in an operation that's happening just to the right of that you don't know but you can play separately, one of the Hive Tyrants gets killed. And by them dying, because they're all linked, all the aliens die. So in a way, for the main campaign, I guess it kind of feels a little less heroic because you haven't, but you do at least live.
Yeah. You fight another day.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think those kind of things about these almost like side tangent quests almost is kind of really interesting.
I think it's been good as well, because 2 games that came out very close together, Astrobot and Space Marine 2. Astrobot is a new platformer from Sony, which is with their current mascot, this little adorable robot. And then Space Marine, which is like a 7 to 10 hour narrative driven game, has been a sort of shot in the arm of the industry, because I think for so long, I saw a stream, I can't remember if it was What Culture or there was somebody talking about that Space Marine 2 is an Xbox 360 game in the best way possible. It's a game from 10 years ago, but it's now with new updated graphics, because I think a lot of the industry, I love an open world game. Like, I love the Souls games, Elden Ring, Legend of Zelda, like all the stuff they're doing with that now. I love it. I could 100% sink 60 to 100 hours in. Baldur's Gate 3, I think I played about 110 hours. Like, I could easily sink myself into those games. But if every single game that comes out is that, you never finish them. Or you never play them, because you're like, do you know what? I've still got another 30 hours of this game. I can't commit to another 100-hour game. So I think games like this coming out, where with Astrobot, they're like, oh, nobody plays platformers anymore. The days of, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro and all that is done. People only care about if it's Mario. It's had some of the best reviews of any game for a long, long while, with some outlets giving it like 99% or 100%. And it's made them go, oh, maybe people do still want to play platformers. And then similar with Space Marine 2, people are like, oh, maybe people don't want a huge open world game every single game they're playing. Maybe they just want 9 hours that's a good story. And you finish it and go, do you know what? I could go back to that. Or I put it to one side and move on to another thing. I think there needs to be more of that combination.
Yeah, I don't know if this was the case, but you do wonder whether mobile phone games kind of almost gave license to open world, because they were the short, snappy game, and then there was this big block that then just moved out of console. Just went, oh, we don't need to provide that anymore because it's on mobile phone.
Yeah.
But actually, there's still a hell of a lot of people that want to.
And I think mobile phone games
play console
definitely are to blame for the loot box aspect of the industry,
sure.
which I think has died down a fair amount, especially after, I think it was Star Wars Battlefront 2, where nearly all of the...
Second drink.
Second drink.
It is very warm.
I think nearly all of the skins or anything you could get in that game were all hidden in loot boxes. And it was nearly the entire game was behind loot boxes. And you're like, what have I paid for?
Yeah.
I think there's something kind of quite nice about that, I guess, closed amount of time, isn't it, to play a game? So you have that sense of it's going to be this long and I can just immerse myself in that world. And often with those games, you do go back to them after a while. Or, I have in playing games that are structured like that. And I find that more kind of comforting than just playing something that's just sort of endless.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if people were thinking about, you get more value because it's more open world and you can kind of play this again and again and again. Or actually there's something kind of, I don't know, nice about something being really contained. It is like reading a book from cover to cover, beginning and end. And then, going back to that a few years later, I kind of quite liked that when playing those kind of games.
And I think it's oversaturation as well, because I think because nearly all of the games that have come out for the last 10 years have been these huge open world games, it gets to a point, like I was saying, I've just played this 100-hour game. I can't play another 100-hour game because I have a life. I have other things that I want to do, so you can't commit to it. Whereas, I think I probably go back and play the original Crash Bandicoot or Spyro a lot more than other games because they last 5 or 6 hours and I can go back to it. And I think just that oversaturation is now, with Space Marine coming out, Astrobot, other games like that, people have gone, oh, actually, maybe we should have variety, which I think is great. Because like I said, open world games are brilliant, but when there's too many of them, you just can't immerse yourself in it the way you would want to.
Yeah. And I wonder if kind of with the games that have that progression and have that contained amount of time, I think for me when playing those games, I feel I not accomplished something, but my journey through understanding how to play it and then getting good at it is better than trying to play open world games where, any kind of shooting game, I'm just always shit. And I find that really frustrating, and then I do have to put time in it to get better, to actually get the most out of that game. Where I think when they are a little bit more contained like that, I kind of feel like my progression through it, maybe because the way it's designed, actually, I kind of feel that, okay, I've started here and I've ended here. And there has been a progression somehow in the skill or the knowledge of the game or the way to play the game or understand how to play the game. Whereas, open platform games, open world games, I really struggle with because I'm just always shit at them. But I don't have the time to invest in them to get good.
I think it depends as well as what they're filled with. Because I think, you will have games that get filled with hundreds of hours of different variable content. But obviously, that's incredibly expensive to do. Like, Baldur's Gate, for instance, is very expansive. And there's stuff they didn't even put in the game. And it's huge. And it took a lot of time to make. And it cost a lot of money to make because so many different voice actors, so many different areas, so many different design, music, everything. But then you have games like, for instance, the Insomniac Spider-Man games that came out on the PS5 and PS4. Are narrative-driven games, but obviously you can swing around New York. And for the first 4 or 5 hours, you have these little crimes pop up, and you're like, oh, that's cool. There's a random crime I can go and do. But by hour 10, obviously those crimes repeat, because they are pop-up events, and there's only a set amount of pop-up events. So it does become samey. And I don't think that's any fault of the designers or the devs or anyone, or narrative designer or anyone, because there is only a certain amount you can do within a budget that can randomly appear. It will have a limit point. But I think if that is within a short narrative thing, you don't notice it as much. Similarly with the Space Marine, a lot of those scenarios are very repetitive. You are fighting swarms of these things, but I think because the design of the areas is so rich and different every time you go to it, and there is dialogue matched with that, and, they're set scenes, even though there is a same sort of mechanic to it, it feels different every time.
Yeah, because you basically just go and do a mission, you come back to the captain, you go and do a mission, you come back to the captain, don't you? And I think, but I think each one of those is ramping up, and it's a bit like when we've made street games in the past. At the end of each of those missions, or just before the end of each of those missions, we're kind of where we'd be designing like that moment, that hero moment of someone stepping up and being able to go, oh, I've been given this information 4 scenes ago or 4 locations ago, and now I know what that was for, and I can step up and open the padlock, or give or say the password to this person to get access, or whatever. I have that hero moment. I think Space Marine 2 seems to do that quite well, where just as you're kind of maybe seeing it being quite samey, they'll go on a run with another 5 or 6 Space Marines that aren't in the 3 campaign, and it'll be a dreadnought, and there'll be some tanks and stuff like that, and then you'll see a Lord of Change that's just bigger than 5 houses. You're like, whoa, they've broadened it out. And I think what was interesting about some of the scenes on that game, which was kind of interesting, that you also at some point see where you came from, because you're kind of like, in a way, spiraling up these landscapes. And so you start at the very bottom of this building stroke outside environment, and then you can look back and see where you've been. And that's I think that's quite a powerful thing, where quite rare, because if it's open world as such, generally, I mean, it's not necessarily always flat, but it's almost like flatter. And so you just go, oh yeah, I've just been over there. But this spiraling kind of felt really quite special to see. And then I guess the company who's done that has done I can't remember the name of the one, but it's a zombie game.
World War Z.
Yeah. And they've got that kind of ability to do these just mass things that are physical.
The engine they work with it feels overwhelming almost constantly. So when you surmount it, it's incredibly satisfying, because you just see it as a shot, like you're up on a hill or you're up on the side of a building, and you see hundreds upon thousands coming towards you. Like, how the hell are you supposed to do this? And then you do it like, oh, that was a lot, but that was really satisfying.
And I don't think you can believe that they are actually real. No. Because your brain is still like, this game can't be physically possible. Why is it running, or how is it running? And then you shoot it and it's like, oh no, I've just damaged it. It's real. It's kind of interesting how it's almost suspension of disbelief to the level of the technical ability. It's kind of
the operations mode as well. So the campaign's very set in the way it runs, and the 3 Marines you play with, I think it's Gadriel, Chiron, and Titus, they all have, in essence, they're the same build, and you can get the same weapons for them. Whereas in operations, you have an option between 6 different classes. So, for instance, my class, the Assault class, has a jump pack, which is basically a jetpack, a massive hammer, and then pistol. So it doesn't have a main gun. It will always be melee damage and then a little side pistol. And if you pick that class and say somebody else goes with the sniper and the heavy, the AI engine in operations mode works off of whatever you've picked. So if you've picked those 3 classes, it goes, okay, well, there's a sniper who's long distance, so I need to put this amount of quick enemies that are going to run at them against this amount of hundreds of little enemies that will go with the melee assault character. So the AI engine is absolutely bewildering, because it will change as you're playing. And if you get through the beginning bit really easily, the engine adapts and sort of goes like, oh, that was a bit easy for them. Okay, we'll throw more in this next bit. And like, the fact that games can do that now is bewildering.
It's incredible. I guess to begin to sort of wrap up, what is next for you?
What can I talk about?
I can ask a different question if it's easier.
Well, I can say that I'm working on a couple of different games at the moment that I cannot talk about. But they are very, very fun. One is a very big franchise, which is very exciting. Hopefully, Camland Series 2. If we can get the funding, that would be lovely, because I would love to go back to that world and work with that amazing team. And yeah, working on a few different things, more audiobooks. I think the author has just released book 14, and we're recording on book 10 next month, so there's a lot more of those to go through. And yeah, hopefully some other projects that are funding dependent as well.
So in terms of everything that you've kind of been working on recently with voiceover work, do you have any kind of plans or desires to maybe be able to take that back into the theatre world, kind of back to where you started from, really kind of back to your roots?
Yeah, I mean, like, I do miss working in theatre, and every now and again I will sort of do different stuff, like I did R&D project with yourself and Laura Jeffs White, and work with Flossie and Boo a lot as well. And I think I'd love to be able to take sort of techniques I've learned or worlds that I've helped create and sort of implement that back into the theatre world. And sort of, like, I'm really interested in the use of things like binaural audio and the way that you can world build in a space that isn't necessarily filled with stuff, or how imagery can fill that space, or just some way of using tech and audio to create a landscape that isn't there in the space. Because I think you can do incredible things with set design and with costume and things like that, but I think, like we were saying earlier, going back to things that you visualize in your head from reading a book or hearing someone read a book, it creates this world in your head. And I'd be really interested to see how that can be implemented with an audience, listening to actors performing a piece and working with a Foley artist, for instance, who's creating this soundscape and this audio landscape that can then build that world for the audience without it being literally in front of them, if that makes sense.
So watch this space.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Thank you for listening, and we wish you a very Merry Christmas, and we hope you enjoy the break. We will be back in January, so don't forget to subscribe or follow so you get to listen to our next episode.